It's there! Holy moly, this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're going to have a follow-on video for Grand Slam, and it became pretty obvious that this video was going to be like a necessary thing pretty soon after I uploaded the original video about Grand Slam, which is that one there. Now, where we'd kind of got to with that was we'd taken it as far as we could, sort of internally, if you will. Mort in particular spent a huge amount of time trying to work out the setups, but we'd hit a brick wall with it. We'd gone as far as we could with it. So the idea was that I'll make the video, I'll get it out there, and hopefully, you know, some new people will come forward, people who, you know, don't read Desert Island Fruits or maybe don't watch all the videos on my channel, but they see the name Grand Slam and they'll click on that and have a look. And from there, we can fill out the bits of the puzzle that we were missing. Now, the good news is that that is what happened. The really good news is that somebody even posted a video about it showing a couple of the setups. The bad news is that that video has gone. However, I have taken a Bandicam recording of it. When that was first uploaded, I thought, oh, that'll be brilliant for the follow-on video, so I'll Bandicam it for myself, and then I've got a nice, easy clip to use to refer to when I make my follow-on video. However, what's happened in the intervening, the last time I checked, I think, oh, a couple of weeks ago, that video was still there, and it's gone now. Now, I do have a copy of it, which I'm going to refer to in this video. However, the person who uploaded that video has obviously made a decision to remove it. So what I'm going to do when I show clips out of the video, I'm going to mute the audio completely so that you can't hear the guy's voice. I'm going to remove anything, you know, the channel name and all the rest of it. It looks to me, by the way, like the whole channel's gone as well. So I am going to show some clips out of that video. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do as much as I wanted to. Most of all, I was going to say, go and watch this guy's video because it's really, really good. He's got some great stories. So that video's gone now. I will still use some footage out of it, but it does limit me in that regard. And this comes on to, I think, the bigger issue with Grand Slam, because we've had a big old chat here over at Desert Island Fruits. As ever, folks, my answer on this is do please come and join us over at Desert Island Fruits, because this is where we chat about stuff, and this is where I chat about stuff as well. I have explained before why I don't get involved with the comments on my videos when they are left. It's not because I like being rude or kind of ignoring people. It's just that it is far, far too time consuming. I put a whole section in the first video on this channel explaining why comments would be turned off. I then at one point I did turn them back on, but my position stands on why I'm not going to get involved on replying to them. It's just a really, really time-consuming and inefficient way of doing it, and it makes for a better conversation if we do it over here at Desert Island Fruit. So please don't think I'm being rude. I will always put a link to the threads at Desert Island Fruits in my video descriptions. All you need to do is sign up over there, and we can have a chat about stuff there. Mort has gone away again and has been looking at some more setups. He has worked some out there. Can you see? He's even been tracking these things in a spreadsheet. So Mort has worked out a couple based on information that we got from the video and some comments. He has worked another couple out. So we made some progress with it, but even there, Mort had to eventually say, right, I think I've gone about as far as I possibly can with this now, because I'm slightly going mad with it. But as you can see there, a nice long chat we had about it. So the meat and two veg that I was going to do for this video was going to be referring to this video that's been deleted, so that's going to slightly alter what I can do with this, because I have to be mindful of the fact that the guy who made that video deleted it. But we do need to have a look at something that was in that video, because you know what they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So rather than me doing my usual 50,000 words, let's just have a look at a little clip of this video. Unfortunately, I can't have the guy's original audio in there now, so I'll just kind of narrate it as we go. Okay, so here we go. Now, I cropped this quite aggressively to remove as much of the peripheral stuff as I can. But what you can see here, he's starting off, let me just go back, he's starting off with a hold after nudges on bells. So you see there, he's got the flash, he's got the cancel flash, so he's going to start off with bells. Now, that's basically your dream start. If the machine is doing cancels for bells, which is the £100 win on the base game, you kind of know that your quid's in. I'll just refer back to this because I can't refer to it now. He talks about this in the video, but of course I can't do it now. And if I drag that down there, what you can see from the win plan is essentially all of these wins here are useless. The £4 and the £8 are useless because if you think about it, you can't afford a £10 spin. Any of those wins there, that the whole point of this is switching up to the £10 to get the big wins. So any of those wins there will not give you a £10 spin. So really what you want is grapes for 20 quid, because that's going to give you 5 £2 spins and then a £10 spin if you can go up to it. 40 quid is obviously better, and then £100 for bells gives you a really good target area. What he also said was that if it was nudging in the win, it would do a cancel for the win below it. So in that one there, if it's giving you the nudges on the reels for the BFM bars, it will be prepared to do cancel for grapes. But really, they're the wins that you want: 20, 40, or 100. 100 would be the dream start. But from what he was saying, if you're just getting cancels for grapes, you know that you are quids in. So just let that sink in for a second here. This is a £1,000 jackpot machine. If it shows you that it's willing to do a cancel after, a cancel hold or a hold after nudges for the £20 grapes, you know that your quid's in. But those one there, the heart symbols there for 16 quid, they can be okay as well. But what you really want is grapes. And apparently the way that you can tell that these were ready was that if they had to be giving you these wins here. If none of these wins were being offered, then you would walk. If it was just giving you 4s and 8s on the base game, then you walked and you were done. So let's go back to the video up here and let's pick this up. So where we are here is obviously this is a happy machine. We know that already because this was a happy RAM file. But this was a thing. You could get this on the real thing where you get a hold after nudges for bells. And just watch what he does. So you see there he's got £2 spin, £2 spin. Then he takes a £10 spin and it came in. So he knew he was going to get the oranges there. He tries another £10 spin. And what he actually says there, before he does that £10 spin, he says, I think it was oranges, wasn't it? Oh, it's oranges into melons. So you can see there as he does the first, you can see it happens pretty quick, doesn't it? So let's just go back a little bit. In fact, we have to go back. So there we are. Right. So you see there, so we've got 2, 2, 10, which is oranges. Then he says it might go into melons. And then it goes into melons. So he already knows the sequences that are coming. Now, he stayed on a £10 spin there. And what he said, it might do this next. And they said, no, it missed. Or, that was close. So he does another £10 spin, thinking, okay, that could do melons. Then it misses. Then it misses. And now what he says is, right, that real configuration there is dead. We're nowhere in the sequence. It's not going to do anything from that point. And then what he says here is, and this makes perfect sense here, look at all these spins that he's doing. Quite a few spins here on 2 quid. And the point there is you're waiting for these sequences and these setups to come around. and you only want to be wasting £2 a spin. So remember when I got the bank up to whatever it was, well, in the original video I had a really big bank and I'm hammering away at £10 a spin and thinking, fucking hell, was it 500 quid? I fucking only had 500 quid there and it's just taken the lot. It's because the machine is in the dead part of the sequence. So if you're paying £10 a spin when you're in the shit bit of the sequence, you only need 50 spins and it's had 500 quid off you. So what he says here is you only want to be burning the £2 a spin. When you're in the shit bit of the sequence, you only want to be losing £2 a spin. And then when you get into the good bit where it either can or will drop something in, that's when you want to go up to a tenner. So he carries on here. So again, he will try a £10 spin if he thinks something's going to happen. What he said there was, oh, that was close, it just missed. So it's not an exact science some of the time. And this ties in something else that somebody else told me behind the scenes. And this is the other thing as well, the fucking cloak and daggers around this even now. It's about how far each reel can go. Now, this has been a thing for a long, long time in a lot of machines, is each of the reels can only go so many stops. Not just on Grand Slam, but on fucking AWPs as well, for Seven Heavens back in the day. Ace and JPM were good for this as well, where each of the reels, 1, 2 and 3, could only go a certain number of stops. Reel 1 would usually be the shortest, then 2, and then 3 would be the longest spin, and like 3 could go all the way round with, you know, with a target zone of like 3 stops either way. So it gives you, it's like every single stop on each of the reels isn't available to the machine every spin. It can only hit in certain zones. And when you've got stacked symbols like you have on Grand Slam, you can see there how that gives you a target area where these things might hit. So he's burning through his £2 spins. Here you can see it. And he actually says, look, this would be costing you £10 a spin. And none of these are ever going to pay anything. So there, every single one of them, he's basically saving himself £8. And there we go. Oh, that was just on a £2 spin. Then he went up to the £10 spin. You see there, let's just go back. He does play it quite quickly. So he's on, I think that dropped in there, didn't it? See there, that actually dropped in on £2 a spin. So it dropped in the strawberries on £2 a spin. But then he knew to go up to a £10 spin. And then that was £1.50 on lemons. Let's just go back and look at that one more time. See there, that actually drops in on £2 spin. If you watch where he's clicking on the buttons. See there, so £2 spin, £2 spin, strawberries. Then he's like, right, so that's £10 on strawberries. I'm going to switch to a tenner, and that should be lemons. £10 spin, bosh. £1.50 on lemons. And then what he can do, you see there, he takes another couple of £10 spins. Then no, we're back to £2. And here comes the absolute doozy. Watch this. When he does it there, he said, oh, that was a miss, that was a miss. It's just coming up. It's not far from now. £2 spin, £10 spin, bang. 4 bells. Look at that. So £2. Oh, just to go back a little bit more. So watch now. £2 spin. And what he actually says, the spin before he does this stake switch, he's like, oh, that should do a swap for bells. So he knows he's doing 2. And you saw how many dead £2 spins there were there. But just watch. He switches to a £10 spin saying, this should swap for bells. And watch what happens. One £10 spin, bang. And there is the jackpot. So I think just this little short section of video here tells us everything that we need to know. I really wanted to be able to use some of this guy's voice in here. I really wanted to be able to give you a link to his video. It's a great video. It's not long. It's only about 11 minutes long, but he tells some of his stories about going around the casinos and all that sort of thing. I think he said the most he ever made on one of these in a day was £17,000. He talked about how you would drive over the country, from one side of the country to the other, to find ones that were ready. Like, not, you could go to some casinos and they'd been done already and you just have to move on. But as soon as you found one that was showing you grapes, and that does come back to, I talked about this in the original video, this idea of them, inverted commas, showing grapes. I thought it meant something up on the top game, but based on what we found out since the original video was uploaded, and based on what's been said, based on this video, the big deal is when you get the grapes on the bottom game. If it's giving you grapes on the bottom game, that is the really clear indicator that this machine has got a chunk of value in it. It does kind of lead us into the academic difference between emptying a machine and an emptier. So the best thing that we can get here, information-wise, is that this isn't a traditional emptier, in that if the machine had, let's just say for the sake of argument, that the machine had a £50,000 hopper, like, you couldn't just take the whole £50,000 out if you were stood in front of it. Eventually the percentage will start to do its thing, but and the control of the percentage. But because of the way that these things do the compensation and the pots, they can get so far behind and have so much value in them that you can empty them multiple times. So a machine that is still actually trying to keep to percentage and is sort of targeting that percentage and will sort of get there, you can still empty that thing several times over because it's been played so badly. Like how I played it in the original video, where I lost all that money once I built it up. That was playing it badly, and that kind of value is going back into the machine, and the compensator is storing it up. So it is emptyable in that you can empty this thing potentially several times over, but you can get to one that's dead. If you get one that is just limiting itself to 4 and 8 pound wins, then you can't do it and you have to move on. So like I say, it's a little bit of a shame here that I can't actually have this guy talking to you, which is what I wanted to do for this. It's a shame. What can I say? It's a shame, because it's a really good video, but obviously he's made the decision to remove it. But that, for me, I think, honestly tells us just about everything that we need to know. And some other information that I got, one of the guys who has done this quite extensively in the emulator, he says that he's able to keep his consistently about £1,000 behind. So you can get them over percentage and you can keep them over percentage, but you can't infinitely empty them. You can't, like a sort of a Revolution. So the video that I made about Revolution, whereby every time I played that, I could take it further and further over percentage. Another one would be Overload, where again, I can put that into the emulator, I can have a session, and at the end of that session, that machine will be further over percentage. You can't do that with Grand Slam. The compensator and the control will kick in eventually. And what this guy was saying is that after tens and tens of thousands of pounds through he's got his, it will only allow itself to be about one jackpot behind. And what he was saying, that when he used to play these in the casinos, that was generally about the best he could do. The other thing around that, by the way, and we've had this confirmed from multiple sources, is the ROMs that we're running in the emulator here are the original early ROMs. We thought that we had rechips here. These are not rechips. That was confirmed. Several comments, people over at Desert Island Fruit, and one guy who contacted me privately to say, I know that these ROMs are the early ROMs because they came out of my machine to be dumped. Now, this has all been private conversations. The Cloak and Dagger around this machine, even in the year 2024, is quite staggering to me. It's like the fucking mafia or something when it comes to Grand Slam. So this is stuff that people are telling me privately, so I'm just having to sort of paraphrase it here because I don't want to give anyone's identity away. But I have it on very good information that the ROMs that we're running in the emulator here are early release ROMs and that they came out of a real Grand Slam machine to be dumped at that time. One of the other comments that we got said you can tell a rechip really, really clearly because when you stake switch, they do very, very long spins. So it's like they reset the sequence because the main problem here that we can see is that this machine has setups and sequences and it doesn't care what stake you're playing it on. So you can play on £2 stake on the top game until you get to the right bit in the sequence and the right setup, and then you can switch up to £10 and the machine just carries on as if nothing had changed. And which is where, and you saw it very, very clearly with that guy in his video there. But what they did on the rechip was that each stake controls itself more independently. So that if you do a stake switch from £2 to £10, the reel say, right, okay, I'm going to reorganize myself and get into a fresh sequence, and they'll do a long spin as they come back to that new sequence, and it won't just carry on the sequence and the setup from the £2 spin. So that's a really big tell for a rechip, and we don't have a rechip here because you can see that it does the short spins. Whenever you stake switch, the spins just carry on short. But I've also had it very, very directly that the ROMs that we're running in the emulator here were dumped from a real machine in 1998, and it was the same ROM set that was in the casinos at the time. And I think that about rounds that one off, really. In a way, it's kind of the same as where we were in the first video, because we knew the truth of the situation, that that this machine does have setups and that stake switching is the answer. But we have got a little bit more now. We've got that fantastic video, which unfortunately I can only show you a short clip of, where you can see the stake switching being done very clearly. There's been some chat over at Desert Island Fruits in the thread about this, whereby apparently there are hundreds of these setups. There are sequences of different symbols, and there's something called reversing as well that you can do. So there's a lot of stuff to learn, and I don't want to sort of underplay that. I don't want to understate the amount of effort that would have be involved to learn all of these setups and to keep your head on top of them and to remember all the things when you're stood in front of the machine. I don't want to kind of do that down in any way, shape or form, because I probably couldn't manage it. But that's basically where we're at. If you want to bring it down to absolute brass tacks, is this machine can store an absolute ton of value. It can have thousands and thousands of pounds available in the compensator to pay out. And if you know the stake switch setups, you can take that value out and you can empty the thing, because they only had hoppers, it was about 1,150 quid or something. So they had one jackpot and a bit more in them, a jackpot and then a bit more to carry on playing with. So obviously, if you're taking 2 jackpots out of the thing, you've emptied it already. So yes, you could empty it in that regard, but it's not an infinite emptier. However, they could store so much value that one machine could be emptied time and time again if it had enough value in it, but it is not an infinite emptier. And if you know what the setups are, and even though it can take a very long time, this is something that the guy was saying in that video there, was that you could be on these things all day. If they were playing funny buggers with you, and obviously we saw a very, very dramatic example there where he stake switched up for the jackpot. That's great, but you can wait a long, long time for those setups to come around. One of the big ones is the full screen of strawberries, which is 500 quid, but it can take you a lot of churning around and stake switching and getting some of these smaller wins here, you know, the 50s, the 100s, the 150s, to bring that round, and certainly to bring the bells round could be a really, really long-winded endeavour. So it wasn't like you just walked up and 5 minutes later you had £1,000 out of it. I mean, in that video that we saw there, that's exactly what happened, but that was a very much a dream scenario. The reality was that these things would often be more of a tussle. But what he said there was, if you put me in front of one of these that's cancel holding for grapes for 20 quid, I can win on that machine. I can take money out of that machine, and they're the state that I would be looking for them in. One of the reasons, apparently, that this is still a little bit secret is this fella here, Hot 6, is a straight clone, code-wise, of Grand Slam. You can see that the setup of the machine there is exactly the same as Grand Slam. And up until not that long ago, these were still a sight at some social clubs and holiday camps and that sort of thing. And I am told that they're very, very rare now, but they can still be found. They're described to me as like being like rocking horse shit, but there are still a handful of these Hot 6 machines around. And what was said to me is, if you put me in front of one of them, I will walk away from it with a profit of about £650. So there you go. That's another point there, that these machines have perhaps even here in the year 2024 not completely died. And yes, one guy said I had one of them up until about 3 or 4 years ago. There was a Hot 6 on site that I could visit and make money out of. Slots Magic there is saying that he remembered having one of these in a holiday camp arcade, and he didn't know any better at the time, but he noticed that it got refilled a lot, and that would explain why. And that's kind of what it comes down to. Imagine what Mortar's done here, where he has started to work out, see there, some actual mappings and sequences. But imagine that there are hundreds of those kinds of sequences and setups, and you keep them all in your head, and as long as you know when to stake switch, you can get the wins out of it and potentially get those jackpot banks out of it as well. The guy who made that video he's basically the same age as me, and what he was saying is when he was 18 years old, he had £10,000 in his bank account. So when I was 18 years old, I was doing what? Gambling Loeb's Part 4, was it? I think, the Lancaster one. So in 1992, when I was 18, I was in the middle of Gambling Loeb's Part 4. This guy had £10,000 in the bank. At the time, he was doing the £4.80 machine, so the aces, the spot the balls, the seven heavens, 10p cancel, all that kind of thing. So he was clued up in 1992, and I was the addict going around filling him up. He does kind of say that apologetically in the video, like, sorry, Degsy, yeah, I was one of the guys who was going around clobbering these machines. And I've always said, this has always been my line with this, is I absolutely do not blame the players for this one little bit. I would have done exactly the same thing, and when I did start to get a bit of a clue, I did do exactly the same thing. I lay the blame squarely at the foot of the companies who were kicking these things out for decades. This was not a one-off, it was not a rarity, and it was right to the absolute top of the tree here with £1,000 jackpot compensated machines. They just fucked it up time and time and time again. And this is perhaps the ultimate iteration of it. A £1,000 jackpot machine that has learnable sequences on the top reels, and it isn't smart enough to know that maybe if the player switches from a £2 stake to a £10 stake, perhaps we should rejig those sequences a little bit. Because just look at it there. The grape win on £2 is 50 quid. The grape win on £10 is 500 quid. Or for strawberries, you're going from £10 to £100. So your pay for the strawberries is 1,000% of what it is on £2 when you switch to £10, and yet the machine just carried on playing out the exact same sequences and setups when you did a stake switch. And obviously that's what they fixed on the rechip, because the machine then oh right, actually you've just gone from a £2 stake to a £10 stake where the payouts are 1,000% higher. Maybe I should rejig the little sequence that I'm playing back to you at the moment. I mean, goodness me. I'm slightly past being surprised by this stuff at any point, but I've got to be honest, I am slightly appalled that this kind of failure of the system, the failure of the companies to make machines that worked properly, and the failure of the regulator to fucking regulate the things properly, not as a one-off, not just for a short period of time, but hundreds and hundreds of machines across decades. At least in the case of Grand Slam now, I think we know the answer. It's actually pretty simple. If you bring it down to brass tacks, it's fairly straightforward what's going on here. But the factor that it was a thing, and you saw it there in the video as well. It's a shame that you couldn't hear the guy's commentary, but I tried to give you the best kind of approximation of it. But the long and short of it is that guy knew exactly what was happening next, or at least what was likely to happen next, with plenty enough of a hit rate. Like I said, if you put that guy in front of a machine that was prepared to give grapes for 20 quid, he would stay on that thing until such time as he had the £1,000 super meter jackpot out of it. That's the level that we're talking about here. So I think I'm going to put Grand Slam to bed on this one. For me personally, I don't think I really need to know the setups or to be able to do them. I mean, if someone literally wrote them all down, I might have a crack at learning them and doing that for a video, but the fact that I know it exists, honestly, is enough for me. But like I say, the secrecy around this machine and exactly what made it tick has been surprising to me. That side of things has been surprising to me. There are people who I am on, honestly, pretty good terms with, and have been for many, many years. We can have good chats in public and in private about all sorts of things. And when it came to Grand Slam, it was like, yeah, I'm not actually going to give you the chapter on verse on that. Not in a nasty way, not in a horrible way, but nah, I'm not going there. This is still in the here and now. There is a slight kind of oath of silence around Grand Slam. It's a rather peculiar thing, it really is. And on that note, for me, I think I'm happy to put Grand Slam to bed now. We've had confirmation from multiple sources about what the reality of this machine is, how you did it, the details around sort of emptyableness of it and how that worked, and, you know, what the fundamental mechanics of it were. So I hope that's covered it enough for you. I think we've got the answers that we need there, and we did have that video footage of someone actually doing it. And if you do want to have a play around with this yourself, there is some information in the thread over at Desert Island Fruits, which is supposed to be a starter guide for 10 that someone's posted in terms of the sequences. So if you want to have a go with it yourself, then it has been confirmed to us absolutely that the ROMs that we've got in the emulator here are early ROMs from 1998 that were taken out of a real machine, and the setups do work on it, as we saw in that video. So there is a world where you could have a crack at this for yourself and work it out. For me, I think I am going to put this one into the vault of shame where it belongs, and may it stand there as a monument to the spectacular incompetence of an industry and the ineffectiveness of a toothless, clueless regulator. But that is BFM's Casino Grand Slam on the £1,000 jackpot. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch up with you next time. But for now it is goodbye.